Hey guys, Triple B here. We're back with another roundup of the top 8 from the budget build battle format. This being the 6th week and seeing some very interesting decks making it into the top 8. The first one is T-Strike's Future Box. So it has Miraidon, which has the peak acceleration attack. It's going to do 40 damage and lets you search your deck for 2 basic energy cards to attach to your future Pokemon in any way that you'd like. The second attack on there being Sparking Strike, 2 lightning and a psychic, you can use it, but unfortunately they didn't run any lightning energy in the deck to be able to use it. It seems like there was a bit of an oversight and they opted for grass energy, which was intended as lightning. Unfortunately, the list was submitted though, so they kind of just had to roll through the tournament with it. Still managing to make it into top 8 though, so solid run on their part. The other future Pokemon this can be charging up though is Iron Jugulis, which has Homing Headbutt. It does 50 damage to 3 of your opponent's Pokemon that have any damage counters on them. So a great way to do some spread damage and take some cheeky knockouts into low health Pokemon that are already a little bit banged up. The second attack on though, Baryon Beam does 150 base damage and costs 5 colorless energy, so a little bit pricey, but if it has the Future Boost energy capsule attached to it, you can use it for just 3 colorless energy instead. So Miraidon can charge this up, chuck a Future Boost capsule on there, boost that damage up to 170 while giving it free retreat and letting it use it for just 3 colorless energy. So an attachment for turn and the 2 energy off Miraidon and you're ready to go. You can also be charging up Iron Bundle. Its attack Refrigerated Stream does a base damage of 80, and if the defending Pokemon's an evolution Pokemon, it can't attack during your opponent's next turn. So a great way to just kind of wall your opponent into a lot of matchups. So things like Applins, Torterras, they're pretty popular in the format and can just be blocked with Iron Bundle. Hyper Blower also being a solid ability on here, basically forcing your opponent to switch out their active Pokemon with one of their bench, giving you some free gust when you're in a pinch. Now for the Iron Jugulis though, it does need damage counters on things to do the spread attack, so they were running it with Dusclops and Dusknoir in here. You can knock them out, put some damage counters onto your opponent's Pokemon, and then Iron Jugulis just goes, okay, 50 more, knock that out. If you've done a bit of chip damage with Miraidon, maybe it's only hit 40 into something with the first attack, Jugulis can finish it off while putting extra damage into something that Dusclops is set up for a knockout for you to, well, potentially get board wipes in the right situations. The rest of the deck though, it's pretty standard stuff. For supporters, we're seeing Arven, Ionos, Research Boss. I'm sure you're very familiar with what they do. Lana's Aid being a solid staple in this format, getting you 3 Pokemon or basic energy from your discard pile. It does specify non-rulebox Pokemon, but they're not legal in the format anyways, so that's fine. They also decided to run an Eerie in here, which lets you look at your opponent's hand and ditch 2 item cards that you find there. So it can be great for discarding switch cards or rare candies and make your opponent really struggle with trying to set up. And then some other things in here that don't typically see play. Techno Radar lets you ditch a card and then just get into any 2 future Pokemon from your deck, getting you your Miraidons, your Iron Jugulis, your Iron Bundles. Definitely a great card for it. The other things though, I'm fairly sure you're very familiar with. The next list we're seeing grabbing 7th place is Zach's United Wings deck. Definitely an interesting choice for the format since you are limited to 2 copies of a card with the same name. Slight ruling though that basic Pokemon, if they have evolutions, you can have 1 extra copy if there's a stage 1 and 2 extra copies if there's a stage 2. So they ran the Dartrix having 2 copies of it, allowing them to have 3 of the Rowlets to quickly get into them. The Murkrow, they did only run 2 copies. You could obviously play around with these numbers though. So if you included the Honchkrow in the deck, letting you get 1 extra Murkrow. Wattrel also being limited to just 2 copies in the deck, something to consider. They could include a Kilowattrel to have 3 copies of the Wattrel, just boosting up the amount of United Wings attackers in the deck, and then having Flamigo being just a basic that doesn't evolve, you are limited to just 2, which is a bit unfortunate since its ability Instaflock lets you bench it, then search your deck for 3 Flamigos, but you're benching it and searching your deck for the other Flamigo and hoping it's not in the prizes. United Wings though, if you aren't familiar with how that deck operates, for every United Wings attacker in your discard pile, it's going to scale up the damage of the United Wings attack by 20. So it's basically just get as many of these into the discard as possible to scale up your damage. Murkrow has the attack for just 1 dark energy, so it's typically the main attacker you go for. Dartrick has the attack for just 1 colorless energy, so it's a great option as well, while Wattrel and Flamigo both need 2 colorless energy to attack. There is double turbo energy in here, so you can quickly charge up the Wattrel or Flamigo in a pinch, but it will reduce the amount of damage you're doing by 20. So basically for you, all your United Wings guys in the discard pile, just -1 if you're using a DTE. For the deck though, most of it's pretty standard stuff. We've got Bibarel in here as a draw engine, Skwovet to be able to go Bibarel, get me into 5 things, Skwovet, everything on the bottom of the deck can draw into one card, or use a supporter card and then use Squovit to get into one, and then Bidroll to refill your hand, so it's a really solid combo, and having Manaphy for some bench protection. The supporters though, we're seeing Research, Carmine, Boss's Orders. I'm sure you're very familiar with what they do. Interestingly, they did include Crushing Hammers in here, so flip a coin, potentially discard an energy from one of your opponent's Pokemon, buying you a little bit of time. It's pretty cheeky. Having Earthern Vessel, a great way to discard United Wings attackers from your hand while getting you into your Dark Energies to start attacking with your Murkrows or your Dartrix. And then also having Superior Energy Retrieval and Ultra Ball as another way to discard 2 cards from your hands, ideally that say United Wings, and get into other pieces. So really solid seeing this make an appearance in the top 8, and yeah, solid effort with the deck building, Zach. But yeah, the feedback I would give is sneak in those stage 1s just to bump up the counts of the United Wings attackers in here. In 6th place, we are seeing Sporty's Wailord deck. So Wailord has the ability Jumbo Size. This Pokemon's going to take 30 less damage from attacks. It has base health of 200, but with that ability, effectively 230 if they're going for a one-shot. And if they're not able to one-shot it, basically says it has 260. If they have to go for 3 shots, basically says it has 290. It's pretty silly. The attack on here though, Special Wave does a base damage of 120, and if there's a special energy attached to it, it does 120 more. So theoretically 240 damage off an attack is not too bad. To get the energy on there though, they did play Baxcalibur, which can obviously accelerate multiple water energy to it, and then just attach one special energy, so a Luminous energy, a Jet energy. You can get it online. They did also have Reversal energy, which would cost, or would cover the 3 water energy in the attack cost, and then just attach anything else to it, and you're ready to go. So multiple ways to get this online very quickly. For secondary attackers, they have included Veluza, which has a Fillet Memento. When this gets knocked out, you get to move 2 water energy from it to one of your bench Pokemon. So a great way to be able to, hey, this got knocked out, I'm just going to set up Wailord, especially because the attack on here, Hydro Pump, scales up by the amount of water energy on it. So you're going to have multiple on there. You're charging up with Baxcalibur, doing a base of 60 damage, but 20 more for each water energy. So 3 water energy on there, you're doing 120, and it can go up from there. They also included Iron Bundle, which we've talked about before. The refrigerated stream can be very annoying into evolution Pokemon, and Hyper Glower, giving you a bit of a pivot potential. Well, pivot for your opponent, that is, making them have to gust into something else. They are including a Fion in here, which I'll be honest, I'm not too familiar with this. You get to search your deck for up to 3 basic water Pokemon and put them onto your bench. So it's a great way to set up your Frigibacks, your Wailmers, your Iron Bundles, or your Veluzas in a pinch, as well as a Bibberol engine for some draw support. Being a water-focused deck, Arita obviously making a showing in here, Arven just to be able to get into some key item cards as well as tools, so they did include Heavy Baton. When it's attached to a Pokemon with 4 retreat cost, it gets to move 3 basic energy from it to one of your bench, being the water energy. So you chuck this on Wailord, it gets knocked out, move 3 water energy onto a Veluza or onto another Wailord, and you're just ready to keep going. So definitely a great inclusion for the list. Also having Cypher Maniac's Code Breaking, just letting you search your deck for 2 cards, pop them right on top of the deck. When you're running it with Bibberol, it's a great way to go, hey, I have 3 cards in my hand. Cypher Maniac's guaranteeing me the next 2 pieces I'm going to draw into. So yeah, really good call having that in here, as well as including a copy of Lady, allowing you to search your deck for 4 basic energy and put them into your hand. So it's going to get your water energy, and then Baxcalibur is going to immediately put them into play. Some other interesting cards in here though, we did see like Acuity, making it so your Wailord's that bit more bulky, right? It's going to take 20 less damage from attack, so combining this with the ability, effectively taking 50 less, and then also having a Lost Vacuum just to help out into matchups where your opponent might be using some tricky tools you want to get around. In 5th place, we're seeing Milky's Kingdra deck. So Kingdra has the attack Whirltide. You get to reveal the top 6 cards of your deck, and it's going to do 60 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon for each energy card you find there. Then you discard those energy cards and shuffle the others back into your deck. So they ran a fairly high count of energy, having 18, making it so that Kingdra is very reliably getting into energy to scale up damage. If you're hitting 2, you're doing 120, knocking out a good chunk of things in the format, but when you hit 3, you're doing 180, which should be dealing with effectively anything in the format outside of things that are running Luxurious Cape, which they did have Lost Vacuum. So even if they have Cape, it's just, hey, I'm going to get rid of that. I just need to find 3 energy, and you're going to go down. With 18 in here, almost a third of the deck being energy, it's fairly reliable. You're going to be getting that effect off to very high damage. Also, to kind of combo nicely with the Kingdra, they had Basky Legion in here. So Basky Legion is attack costs 0 energy, and then it's going to do 20 damage for each basic energy card in your discard pile. Then you shuffle those back into your deck. So Kingdra is ditching the energy, Basky Legion's recovering the energy and setting it up so Kingdra can ditch those energy again. It's a really nice combo they've come up with here. Also, the fact that this evolves from Basculin that has Gather the Crew, it allows you to search your deck for 2 basic Pokemon and put them onto your bench. Also not needing an energy to do that, so it can be very helpful to establish your bench in the early game, getting you into your Horsies, other Basculins, or into your Vidoofs that can become Bibarels, and having that Squirtle combo piece in here as well. Something you will notice though, they didn't run Manaphy in the list, but they did choose to include a Jirachi. So there's a lot of basic Pokemon that can be spreading around damage counters at the moment. We got a new Yveltal in Shrouded Fables. We have Sableye that's been seeing quite a bit of play, so it's a great inclusion to have in the list. Would be interested to know why they didn't go for Manaphy also though, because we have seen quite a few spread decks try and make their way in the format. The rest of the deck, I feel like it's stuff we've already covered from the other lists, with the exception of the Stadium card Academy at Night. Once during each player's turn, they can look at once during each player's turn, that player may put a card from their hand on top of their deck. So it's a great way just to guarantee that, like, hey, I have an energy in my hand, that's just on top of my deck. So Kingdra is always going to do at least 60 damage just by guaranteeing it that way. And then the other 5 cards, it's, hey, am I going to find some more energy in there? Interesting that we aren't seeing Cypher Maniac in here though. It would be a great way just to be able to search your deck, put 2 water energy on the top, and just guarantee you're hitting 120. Especially because you could go Academy at Night, put 1 on top, Cypher Maniac, oh, that wouldn't combo how I think it is. You'd have to go Cypher Maniac, put 2 water energy on top, and then use this Stadium to put a 3rd water energy on top, and then you're guaranteeing 180. So it could be a pretty solid combo. Right, but in 4th place, we are seeing Rema, who was playing a deck that was actually built by another player in the community, Zen Pulse, and they threw together a Venomoth list. So Venomoth's attack, Perplexing Powder, does 30 base damage. It's also going to confuse your opponent's active Pokemon and make it so that they can't play any item cards from their hand on the following turn. So it's a great way to kind of lock them in the active, going, hey, you can't play Switch because it's an item card and you're confused. So you're going to have to flip a coin. You might hurt yourself, and I'm just going to keep item locking you. Kind of dirty. They were also running this with Toedscruel. So Toedscruel's ability makes it so that cards in your opponent's discard pile can't be put into their hand by effects of your opponent's abilities or trainer cards. So it means things like Energy Retrieval, Lana, they're useless when Toedscruel's in play. And we're seeing Energy Retrieval and Lana in a number of decks. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense including Toedscruel in here. They did also have Volbeat that has the attack Quick Sign. If you go first, you can use this attack on your first turn. Normally you can't attack on the first turn, so cheeky little way to get around that rule. You get to search your deck for up to 2 basic Pokemon and put them onto your bench. So it's a great way just to establish your board very quickly. It does also have a secondary attack on here, Coordinated Strike, that does 20 base damage, and if Illumise is on your bench, 60 more damage. Illumise isn't in here though, so it's 20 damage for 2 colorless energy. You're not going to be declaring that attack ever. We are also seeing Klefki in here, which when it's in the active spot, shuts off basic Pokemon's abilities. A little bit cheeky. It's really good into Lostbox, shutting off their Comfies. It can shut off Flutter Mains. I'm trying to think what else this would get around. If you ran into like a Swim Freely deck, Fion wouldn't be able to do anything. Yeah, really interesting inclusion, and I'm sure there's some other matchups where it would have come up for them as well as Mawile, who has Tempting Trap. So during your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon can't retreat, and it's going to take 90 more damage from attacks. So you can lock something in the active, Venomoth can come into the active and effectively do 120 damage while item locking them. Yeah, not a bad show. They also had a Squovit in here, which I'll be honest, I hadn't seen this card, or I'm not sure if it's just been flying under my radar this entire time, but it has the attack Nicked Nibble. You get to discard the top card of your opponent's deck. I was lucky enough to actually watch Wonderama's game where he just had this sat in the active and was slowly milling his opponent. He had a Handy Fan on it. He was playing into a Festival lead deck, so they knocked out Squovit with a Dipplin. But then because Squovit had Handy Fan, it moved the energy off the Dipplin, and then the Dipplin wasn't able to do the second attack because it didn't have an energy to pay for the attack cost. So it's kind of funny. He was just like slowly milling them out. They finally got to a point where they're like, okay, I can kill this squirrel. And then it was like, yep, but you're not hitting anything else. And yeah, it is a pretty dirty play. The fact that they had Handy Fan too to disrupt where the energy is going, as well as Crushing Hammer. So it's like, I'm going to bounce energy off your attacker, and then I'm going to remove energy off it. So yeah, you're going to have a bad time. It's a very interesting control deck, and keen to see if they continue to develop this list, because we haven't seen a lot of control seeing success in this format. So would be keen to see it kind of find a spot, but at the same time, like, Snorlax, Block Snorlax, please don't bring that into the format. This I'm fine with. Blocklax, no. Also seeing Bibarel in here for some draw power, and then the rest of the trainers, yeah, there's quite a bit going on in here. So you've got Xyrosix Mechanicians. I'm probably butchering that, but your opponent discards cards from their hand until they only have 3 cards remaining. So Venomoth's going to make it so that their items are stuck in their hand, or your opponent's slowly building up, and then you play this and you go and ditch a bunch of that. Like, just get it out of here. We've also got Eerie, so you can target down 2 specific item cards that Venomoth has said, like, you can't use these, and then I'm gonna get rid of them. So if you know that they're holding rare candy, like your opponent wants to use rare candy, Venomoth's saying no, and then Eerie eventually just goes and get him in the bin. Yeah, kind of dirty. I'm not much of a control player, I'll be honest, so there's probably more sequencing in here that I'm overlooking, and in the right hands, this deck could be an absolute threat. But in third place, we are seeing Old Crab's Crab Zone. So it's kind of like a Lostbox deck. He's called it Crab Zone. There isn't any crabs in here. His Twitch handle is Sneaky Old Crab, so it's Crab Zone. But yeah, it's got Cramorant, so obviously Lost Zone. You want to get 4 things in there. Cramorant can start doing 110 damage. He's combined this with Frostlass, so into decks that have a lot of abilities, he's softening it up with Frostlass, and then Cramorant's taking them down. He's also got Monkey Dory, so Monkey Dory's on the bench, Cramorant's on your bench. They're getting damaged by Frostlass, and then Monkey Dory, you just attach a dark energy onto it and go, yeah, these damage counters, I don't want them. You can have them, and it slowly chips your opponent down some more. Comfy also being able to get cards into the Lost Zone, but will be taking damage from Frostlass, so you want to make sure these are in play with Monkey Doors to kind of keep pushing those counters away. Mawile with Tempting Trap again, another great way just to be able to lock something in the active, boost the damage by 90. Cramorant can then do 200 damage. Can definitely be very threatening into a number of decks. Manaphy for some bench protection, and they did choose to go with Luxray in the list. So Luxray has Swelling Flash. If you're behind on prizes, you can just play this card from your hand right onto your bench. The attack cost is a lightning double colorless and does 180 damage. To use it though, you've got Reversal Energy, which is also only going to work when you're behind on prizes. So if Luxray can come into play, Reversal Energy can come into play and pay for its attack cost, and you can just start swinging. So yeah, definitely an interesting take, and gives you a big beat stick, because that's one of the things. As a Lostbox, Cramorant, you're not doing massive numbers. They're kind of going for this slow chip damage with the Frostlass, and then Luxray is just that option that you have, that it's, hey, my opponent has something like a Torterra or an Okidogi that's a little too bulky for me to deal with quickly, and if it goes unchecked, it's just going to snowball, and it's just like, yep, it knocked out one thing, cool. Luxray down, kill it, and you're good. Also including Dunsparce in the list, kind of an interesting choice. So Runaway Draw lets you just bounce this card back into your deck and draw 3 cards. It has an ability, so between turns it's going to take damage counters from Frostlass, but because you kind of have this like escape or like eject button you can pull, right? Like this takes some damage from Frostlass, you push it onto your opponent, it takes some more damage, you push it onto your opponent, it's getting some dangerous numbers, you bounce it into the deck, you're fine. So yeah, definitely like the concept there. Also having a 3 energy attack doing 90 damage, you could be triggering this with Reversal Energy and bouncing it back into your deck, conserving that energy. So interesting take there for sure. The rest of the deck though, it's stuff I feel like we've kind of talked about. Arazu getting into your evolution pieces, Arita grabs your water Pokemon and your items, Boss Chorus, yeah, I feel like you've seen these cards before. We don't really need to go into them too much. And in second place, we're seeing Juzo's Frog Army. I love this. This is epic. If you're not familiar with Politoed, so what this card does is it's gonna do Lordy Song Leader. It does a base damage of 10, but if Poliwag's on your bench, 60 more. If Poliwhirl's on your bench, 90 more, and if Poliwrath's on your bench, 120 more. So you can add all 3 of those together. If you have every single one of them in play, that's doing what? 10, 70, 160, and then 280. So theoretically, you're knocking out anything in the format if you've established your board right. Like even a Torterra that has Luxury Cape, you can one-shot it with the right bench. So that's kind of threatening. Having 4 copies of the Poliwag in the deck does actually make it so it's possible too, because you can have multiple copies of basics as long as you have the stage 2s. So Politoed allows you to have 4 Poliwags. That means you can have Poliwag, you can have a Poliwag that's manually evolved up into Poliwhirl, you can have a Politoed from Rare Candy, and you can have a Poliwrath from another Rare Candy. So you can get to the point where you are one-shotting anything. The Poliwrath, though, isn't meant to be overlooked either, though. So it can do 120 base damage with Jumping Uppercut, and if you want, it can do 120 more damage, but you have to shuffle this Pokemon and all cards attached to it back into the deck. But it can be a great way that you can kind of tank some hits, you can be putting out some big damage, and the fact that they have Luxury Cape in here means that Poliwrath could theoretically have 270 damage, eats a hit, and then, you know, like, takes something out, does 120, softens something up, or like knocks out a pre-evolution or a basic that has 120 or less. Your opponent hits you, then you have Luxury Cape, so you tanked it, you go for 240 the next turn, and you bounce it back in. So you're not risking giving up those 2 prizes, and you are doing big damage into your opponent. So really like the idea of that combo. They did include Manaphy and Jirachi for some bench protection and Bibarel for a draw engine. The rest of the list, though, I feel like it's very standard stuff we've seen outside of Calamitous Snowy Mountain. So this card is going to make it so whenever any player attaches an energy card from their hand to their basic non-water Pokemon, put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. Very specific, but it makes it so that, hey, it's not going to be impacting their deck, but it will be doing some chip damage into your opponent. So yeah, respect it. Interesting choice, and I like seeing kind of like these niche cards seeing play. Did get to see this in the finals though, and it was really cool seeing it played into Kimmy's Festival Lead deck. So Festival Lead, I'm sure you're very familiar with it. Dipplin has Festival Lead. If Festival Grounds is in play, it can use its attack twice during your turn. Do the Wave does 20 damage for each of your bench Pokemon. So with a full bench, you can get up to 100 damage. You can do it twice, so you can be doing 200 to something in the active, or you can be doing 100, knocking something out. Your opponent chooses a new active thing, you do 100 more into that. You can be taking 2 KOs in a turn. They do have Vitality Band in here to boost that damage up by an extra 10, letting you do 110, so one-shotting things like Cramorant, as well as Defiance Band, boosting your damage by 30 when you're behind on prizes. So Dipplin can be doing 130 into 2 things potentially, which is kind of nutty. They've got Thwacky in here, so if Dipplin's in the active, you can use Boom Boom Groove and just grab any card out of your deck. And they also had Goldeen in here just to have a basic Pokemon that can be easily sat in the active, attach Rescue Board to it to be able to pivot it out, and just making it so Thwacky can quickly get it online and just start getting pieces out of your deck. So you're not reliant on getting 2 stage 1s online before you can use Boom Boom Groove. They also have Rapskin here, providing a bit of bench protection as well as protection against effects. So it will be stopping things like Devolution TM, and it will be stopping things like decks trying to put out damage counters. Tonight I played a Hisuian Braviary deck that tries to put damage counters out. If Rapska's in play, it just says, no thanks, I don't want those. And yeah, you can't do anything. And I did also overlook the Thwacky line can evolve up into Rillaboom, so it gives you another attacking option. Drum Beating does a base damage of 60 and makes it so the defending Pokemon's retreat cost and attack cost are 1 energy more. It also has Woodhammer that does 180 for 2 grass energy. It damages it itself, so it's a little bit of a drawback, but gives you that option that can just go, hey, I'm going to do 1 big number into you, and makes it so your Thwackies are a bit of a threat on the bench. Also, Adam, welcome to the Goomba gang. Get the Goomster Goomba. I like it. And yeah, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm recording this live on Twitch, so I'm sure you've kind of seen chat popping up over there. But yeah, I feel like that's pretty much it for this list. The supporter counts, you are seeing these at 4s, 3s. Wasn't technically legal for the tournament. This was something we addressed at the beginning of the tournament, and for every round we did have them submit their updated list to their opponents. So the Arvins got cut down to 2s, the Ionos got cut down to 2s. I've got it on a notepad or in chat somewhere, but this was addressed, as well as the Festival Grounds were cut down to 2s. So if you're looking for a Festival Lead deck to play in the next tournament, use this kind of as a starting point, but you do need to adjust some things. Just keep that in mind. But yeah, hope you enjoyed this video. If you're keen to try out the format for yourself, you can head over to the Discord, which should be linked in the description. And there's always people looking for games. We do also host the budget build battle tournaments every Friday night in the Australian Central Time Zone. And I'm going to be starting to host a North American tournament. It's going to be Saturday afternoons for me, which will mean it's Friday nights for you guys over in North America. Still kind of figuring out if it's going to be a weekly thing or a fortnightly thing, because I still need to make time to record other YouTube content, make some time for shorts and TikToks, and just, you know, keep my sanity and not get burnt out. But hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you haven't already, subscribe. Like, if you made it this far in the video, like, what are you doing? Just click that button. But until next time, stay golden, you Goombas. Hey guys, so remember how I just said that the list we showed you was illegal? Well, we managed to track down the corrected list. Well, by we, I mean mostly Milky, because Milky's kind of just the GOAT. And yeah, here's the corrected festival lead list that is legal for the budget build battle format. So if you want to try this out for yourself, give it a go. Super solid list, and kind of keen to see what other stuff people can cook up. So if you want to try this one, it'll be a good time. But if you want to try something different, trying something different is always fun too. So I'd love to hear what kind of decks you guys would cook up for the format. But now, actually, till next time, stay golden, you Goombas.